Good afternoon, as it now is. Conscious pre-lunch slot, so I won't detain you too long. I'm sure you've got lots of questions for Dominic at the end, and none for me, so that's fine. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew Tarry, Assistant Contract Manager at the area team. I've probably spoken to quite a few of you over the last year, and what an interesting year it's been.
We are where we are.
Yes, we are where we are. Thank you for inviting me again. I'm acutely conscious. I won't say here because we weren't actually here, so it would have been an empty room, but I was in front of you a year ago, probably saying how wonderful CQRS was going to be and how it was going to ease the claim process for you. And I'm sure you'll endorse that fact that it's been a roaring success. That probably teach me to under-promise and over-deliver, won't it? So probably if I say now, nothing will work on it this year, if we get something working, it'll be better than where we were. One, thank you for bearing with it, and well done for everything you've done on the system. If you've had conversations with me, hopefully you would have got the sense from me and from the area team, we share your disappointment about the delivery of it and how it worked in the loosest possible sense. I think from all the work they'd done and the end user feedback they had, it was a disappointing start. We are where we are, so it's a question of where we go from here. So well done for bearing with it. We've constantly tried to drip feed information out to you because it's been a very movable piece throughout the year. So well done for keeping up with that. I appreciate this is but a very small piece of your work. Admittedly, a recognition of it's an important piece of work in terms of cash flow. But well done for keeping up with all the developments on it. What I wanted to do today was really just point you in the direction on a couple of key areas. One, just to conclude and wrap up 13-14 and put it to bed. Some reminders about the year-end claims and what you should, or many where you might have done, but a reminder on those. Again, to wrap up 13-14, how you can go and access the system and determine what claims you've made for the year and were they all the claims that you should have done for the year. And then a bit of a pointer for 14-15, as much as we know at the moment in terms of how it may work. Okay. So really starting with, there's three sort of key year-end DESs that you're claiming. First up, the dementia DES, which is a little bit of an odd one. So one, if you haven't put your claim in on CQRS as yet, please do so. The key point on this and the key difference from all the other DESs is all you'll be able to do is make a data submission. You won't be able to declare your achievement, and that's primarily because it's a very different funding methodology for that DES. I think there's a pot of £21 million that they're going to split between all the practices in the country who have conducted those assessments. So they actually need to run that calculation on one day, and I think the day they've come up with, I don't know if it says on there, probably doesn't, 16th of June is when they're going to run that calculation. So it's a once only opportunity to make sure you've got your assessment data submitted in there, because if it's not done by that date, we can't go back and recalculate it, because it relies on every single practice having the correct data across the country. So unless someone wants to come to an agreement that one practice in the country only goes in and claims the checks and the claims and they get £21 million, I don't know. But I suspect it won't work like that. So a call to action, if you haven't claimed it yet, please do so. We will also be looking at that to see that, right, from the practices that say they were participating, which ones have actually made those claims, and prompting you if you haven't done so. So that's the dementia DES. The second one of the year-end ones is patient online access. What we've done here is it appears that we were waiting for some data to validate your claims. Essentially, your clinical system suppliers make a return to the HSCIC on a quarterly basis about the functionality you've got in your clinical systems in terms of online booking, online repeat prescriptions. That data for the last quarter doesn't come through to us until possibly at some point in June. So what we've done is, if you've claimed up to the 2nd of May, we've paid you. We will have to do a post-payment verification looking at the data we've got. It's possible we may need to come back to you if your declaration doesn't match with the data that comes through from HSCIC. And I think we're acutely conscious, particularly for those of you who might have had third-party web-based systems that aren't linked in with your clinical system. They're particularly the practices we'd need to contact. And we're clarifying nearer the time when we've got that, but I suspect we just need a brief statement from you of that fact. So again, if you haven't claimed, you've still got scope to do that. The alcohol, Des, yes, we all need some alcohol, please. It's a little early, but it is lunchtime, I suppose. Again, it's a year-end claim. Just a point here, that the only valid claim date on this was the 31st of March. So I have seen a number of practices that have made claims for the year. They won't have gone anywhere or been paid. So, one, make sure you do your claim for the 31st of March. If you have done one for the 31st of March and it didn't cover the entire year, contact me, because we're only paying you for what it says on the system for the 31st of March. So please let me know if your 31st of March claim doesn't cover the entire year. So they're the 3 year-end DESs. Just to wrap up 13, 14, so I do get a few calls about how can we know what we've claimed? Have we been paid appropriately for all these claims? But there is a report you can run, and it's in the pack, so I won't go through it in a lot of depth. There is a good report, and I say that almost surprised because a lot of the reports I would acknowledge in CQS aren't particularly useful and are sometimes more misleading than being helpful. But there is a good report called a payment declaration report. It's in reports, declarations, and it's then the only report that is there. That will give you a complete breakdown of all your claims and your data submissions for the year. So if you're not sure what you've claimed, or if indeed it's a good opportunity at year end, I'm sure you'll have accountants in and looking at your accounts for 13, 14. This is the report that will tell you what you've claimed and what you've been paid. So there it is. It's in reports, declarations. Set it for 13, 14. I think it should default to the whole year, but if not, you can set it from 1st of April to 31st of March. I'm sure you can't see that. You probably can't see it in the pack either, but essentially what it will give you a line per DES per valid claim period. And it comes up with all these horrible, confusing codes on there, and there's a list of them there. Just to cut to the chase in terms of which are the ones you really want to look at, it's probably those top two, awaiting data or awaiting service provider approval. So particularly, awaiting data basically says you haven't submitted anything for that claim period. So just a few notes on that. One, you may not have anything to claim for that period, so that may be perfectly appropriate. I am aware that some practices go in religiously and make 0 claims. Great, you don't need to, but if that works for you in terms of your audit process, fine. Also conscious as we went through the year in terms of when everyone came on stream in terms of using CQRS, you may have claimed for multiple months in 1 month. You will know that. CQRS isn't that clever, it doesn't know that. So if your February claim included 3 months worth, it will show those previous periods as awaiting data. But you've got that knowledge, so just to say the report can only show you the periods where you haven't submitted for a specific date. And this should hopefully flag up those, when we use one of my favourite phrases, bear traps that are in CQRS that make you think you might have claimed something when actually you haven't. So if you've claimed with something that is an incorrect day, i.e. it's not last day of the month or last day of the claim period, or if you've not filled in those pesky management information indicators, it will still say awaiting data, because it won't recognise that as a valid claim. So hopefully that's a prompt for you. That report is useful, and I think it is accurate. It says touching wood, to see what all your claims for 13-14. And just really to leave you with some headlines around what we know from about 14-15 to date. The good or bad news, depending on how you want to view it, is the only thing you can claim for in CQS at the moment is the shingles DES. And that's because it's quite an oddity as a DES in that it straddles the year. It runs from 1st of September 13 to 31st of August 14. So that is the only DES that is available. Of course, there's two elements of it. There's the catch-up and there's the routine element. That's the only DES you can claim for at the moment on CQRS. So if you try and cheat it and go and claim rotavirus for the 30th of April, I don't think it'll work. So it won't let you make any 14-15 claims on any of the other DESs. And I'm conscious we're now going to the phase of how it's going to work for this year. This is what we're being told at the moment, that for the other DESs, payments were commenced from July. Our understanding is they're investigating, and you may have got a message about this from CQRS HSCIC yesterday, they're investigating GPES working for learning disabilities, rotavirus, and I think the component to the dementia DES. But certainly learning disabilities and rotavirus being those ones for the first quarter. So they're currently investigating the process of getting those automated, which of course that was where we should have been in 13-14. That was the key point of what CQRS was going to be designed to do. Although I would excuse CQRS a little bit on this because that relied on GPES providing that data, and that's where it fell down in 13-14. That wasn't ready. There will continue to be manual entry available from June on a couple of the DESs, most specifically MMR and these two new DESs, the MEN-C and Hep B. The perception is the claim volumes on those will be reasonably low. So what they've tried to do is say, let's look at the big ticket items, the ones where you're going to be claiming all the time, and focus our energies on those. So that's very much where we are. So I'm conscious that this month you would probably want to be claiming for MMR, rotavirus, things like that. Unfortunately, we are waiting nationally on these being delivered in June for July payment. Later in the year, and some of those are more seasonally related in terms of childhood and seasonal flu. We will have those available in CQRS. Again, I can't vouch or guarantee whether they're going to be automated at this stage. I think really, whilst there has been a long and not very smooth process for the year, I would leave on a few sort of notes of positivity. In the end, we got the QOF achievement sorted, albeit very late. And they cocked up the calculation, as you know. But I think the good thing is the methodology of GPES extracting that data via clinical systems, broadly speaking, is viewed to be a success. And why shouldn't it have been? Because actually that's what QMAS did for many years. So they've proved that works. I think that then gives them a good basis to say, right, we can now use that functionality and that data extraction from GPES for the other services. I think the other positive news is the vast majority of you of practices have claimed the vast majority of DESs that you were supposed to in CQRS, albeit in not a very smooth and user-intuitive way. And I think that's some of the things they're going to learn from it, at least in terms of the ones that will continue to be manual. They won't have management information indicators. I think and I hope they're going to do something more specifically about ensuring that you can only claim for the dates that are valid and not just giving you any date, pick a date, any date. Because we as area teams have very much been feeding that back in. So I think there are some notes of positivity in terms of what the system has done this year. I hope, but I can't guarantee, we'll get this progress through 14-15 and make it the smoother delivery and a better claim mechanism for you. That contact details up there. Many of you have spoken to me or my colleague Janice. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Pretty much the only things we probably can't deal with, we can't deal with password resets because we can't see your passwords. Most other things, the CQRS help desk try valiantly but normally fail. Unless you really want to give them a go, it might be worth giving us a call first and we'll tell you whether it's something that needs to go to them. So hopefully that helps.
Well done, Andrew. I think you were very brave coming to talk to such an audience, because it has been extremely hard work this year, and I realise that you recognise it. I think everybody recognises how hard it's been. So a big thank you to Andrew, who I know has supported most practices and has been able to help you out. So, questions for Andrew and Dominic. We're going to start with Duncan.
Dominic, yeah, a couple of questions for you.
Is your name really Duncan?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
You should know that by now, as I'm fairly renowned at the area team. Yeah, a couple of things you said I'd like to pick up on. One was local decision making, and the other thing, stop doing things. If you follow Pulse, you'll see that today they're announcing that Somerset NHS England have agreed to drop a number of the QOF areas to concentrate on local services, much as they did towards the end of last year. It's now going to NHS England board for agreement. If that's the case, would that be an approach that NHS England locally would like to take to stop us doing things that we don't need to do and improve local services, as much as your talk was about? First part. The second part was regarding Dr. Geddes' letter last year, when he was rather prescriptive in what we could do over Christmas and New Year, when locally we had a number of systems in place that would prevent us having to be open for the entire time, rather like Dr. Geddes' practice, which of course wasn't open when it should have been. And unfortunately, the local area team didn't feel able to make a decision to allow us to be different from the national guidance. And you've talked about local decision making. I'd like your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Should we have the next question?
Easy one to get in going.
Nice one, Duncan. Right.
My pleasure.
This is being filmed as well, isn't it? So this is it. This is. I can't even get over here, can I? And get away from the camera. You're right. I did say all that about local decision making. I haven't read what's in Pulse, so I'm not going to try and sort of respond. And I know the debacle around the QOF at the end of last year, and the expectations that went up and then went down locally. And I know my colleague Beverly was really caught in the middle of that, because there was certain autonomy and decisions and influence that was given, and we took some decisions pragmatically we thought were right as an executive, which then later proved unfortunately weren't the right decisions. And we will have to continue to do that. We are where we are, and we are supposedly one organisation, NHS England is. So the idea is, which I think we're a long way from this, which is why I wanted to push on the clinical local decision making, because I think we're nearer that. But saying that we have one way of doing things across NHS England and it's a single operating model, I think, let's be open and honest, we're a long way from that. And we have got that in certain areas. But I suppose what I'm here to do today is I will argue the case in terms of local, what we think is right locally. But as you know, we are part of a bigger system, and there'll be certain things that will say you can't do that and you can't do this. I can't say what they are at the minute, but I really want the strategy that we work through together to drive through what we need to do. And if that then does say that there is something about QOF, or there's something about we've got some evidence for making that change, and that's probably about all I can say. I'm not going to go on to the Christmas opening.
I will
On 8th of May, but...
I just sort of come in slightly there from an LMC point of view. You're absolutely right. Both were a debacle, along with the recent letter about friends and family test, which we have taken up at a much higher level at region. It is quite clear that Somerset, Devon and Cornwall were very, very rapid and innovative in what they did just before the end of, or just after Christmas. And it's a shame we weren't quite there with them. We were out by one day, and it's quite clear that we were concerned and thought through their proposals very, very strongly before going to the area team and the CCGs about it, because once we start splitting away from the national GMS and PMS contracts, we will find ourselves in some very interesting and difficult positions in terms of what has been a very sound, robust mechanism of negotiation with government over 50 years, 60 years. And so we have to put our toes in the water very, very cautiously on that sort of thing. But there are some other local proposals that are coming out. We have got Bedfordshire CCG banging on our door. We've got both of the Hertfordshire CCGs wanting to talk to us about some innovative ideas of coming away and out of GMS and PMS contracts and looking at some local solutions. So it very much is watch this space. And I come back to what I said at the beginning of the day. There are certainly some clear green shoots of money coming in the direction of primary care if only we can think outside the box. So enough of me. There's a question, Mary at the back there. I'm watching the sugar levels slowly dropping, so there won't be too many
Mary
questions.
Bishop, practice manager from Stanmore Medical Group in Stevenage.
Hi.
I've heard that you're very interested in working very closely with primary care. May I ask what input practice managers actually have into NHS England, and indeed what input practice managers have into any of the new CCGs?
Yeah. What I suppose I would be encouraging through and you're right, well, I don't think necessarily we're doing it particularly well. I'm sensing from your question and the round of applause from your colleagues that they're supportive of that. But how, if we are developing local primary care strategy, so what does it mean in your different areas? So what does the future look like in Stevenage? Our expectation, whether we need to make this more explicit, will be at a local level within CCGs that primary care is playing into that conversation. So I'd be encouraging, and when I worked previously in roles within Leicestershire, we had various practice managers. You can't have all practice managers, so clearly we're here with, there's hundreds of you, so we can't have a meeting, we can have meetings like this, but how do you then engage, and it might be then that we'd be looking and encouraging, a practice manager from each of the different areas to be involved in the local CCG process or plans. That would be something practical. Why can't we do that? And why can't you influence that with the CCGs? I'll encourage that with the CCGs, but I think that is essential.
Well, to answer that, the local CCG, as you've called it, actually said they didn't want the involvement of practice managers. So there's a stone wall there that needs to come down.
Right, okay.
And I really think that if you genuinely want to recognise primary care and work with primary care, you can't do without the advice and input from practice managers. Just look at the recent things that have gone wrong. We could have actually told you not to do it that way if you'd actually asked our opinions.
Yep.
Our opinions do...
I know, great. Yeah.
Welcome to Beds and Hearts, and you only started on the 1st of April. I don't know whether you're aware that we enjoy a very good relationship with our practitioner services unit. Right. And of course we're probably just about to, well, we're not probably, we are just about to see that completely restructured, but we have regular meetings with those, and on that platform we get the best amount of information ever in my career from just going to what is led by a practitioner services unit. I would hope very much that NHS England will continue to be supportive of the PSU. They have been a fantastic asset over the years. They are font of all knowledge, but I hope that NHS England will look to their example of good communication and engagement with practices, because we get a lot done when we meet in a very short period of time.
I mean, on the PCS, and again, that it was interesting for my own sort of role. All this activity was going on the floor above me at Welland Garden, which I was unsure of until, as you know, sort of a month ago. I agree with you in terms of the role that they provide, the support. I've really got a feeling of the local support for that service. I know Peter received a letter which got passed to me very early on about support. I think you'd had an engagement event, and that really came through about local primary care. Back to Duncan's point, a bit around some decisions are made. There are decisions that are made in nationally, at a national level. We've spent a lot of time. There is two options that are going to NHS England board. I think it's next week now. One is around a regional option, which looks at services. I won't go through the whole detail, but clearly our region is Midlands and East. And there's a transition, and it's part of within the NHS. There is also a proposal around SPS, and in terms of more of a private, independent sector running support services. I don't know the outcome of that conversation or those discussions, and the impact that potentially would have. So I totally understand the support for the local team and people, and whatever decision was made, I'd be keen to maintain that continuity, but I can't say today quite what form and what that will take and at what level, because it's sort of preempting something which will be made at a national level. But right, well, previously, in terms of influencing a local proposal, so to look through our own structure and agree what services should and need to be done locally, we had a lot of influence in that. So Beverly, who I said was my predecessor, was involved in proposing that structure along with her colleagues nationally. So she was very involved. So John Phipps, David Ayres, they have all been involved, and to be fair to David, he's been involved nationally in some of that work, is in influencing the proposal. The decision, though, about which option and the time scale and who will be doing is something that will be made at the NHS England board national level. So, because it clearly is not just our service, it's service in Birmingham, it's service in... people can read what they think, and they can make take a view on what that decision may or may not be. What I'm doing, and early next week I've got a conversation with John Phipps about, depending on what the option is, what do we need to do and what communication do we have to staff. But I totally get from the local view, you're very happy with the service and you want to keep it broadly in the same form and quality it is. And I have got that message, but I'm also saying I've got to, it is depending on that decision and what that means locally. I have not got all the answers today, otherwise I would, share that. So we have influenced the proposal up to this point. We really have. I mean, I don't know whether and Peter's view, everything has really been taken into account, but that will be part of the decision making that will get made.
I'm very conscious of the time and lunch is ready, so just one more question, and then I think Dominic and Andrew are staying behind for lunch. So
it's a good lunch.
Yeah, good lunch. So perhaps, Colin, you could ask the question then. So one last question before lunch.
Thank you. Can I just extend a real thanks to Andrew, because... I'm Carolyn Boyd from De Paris Medical Centre in Bedford, and Andrew has been a very visible face of NHS England, always willing to help us, very responsive, quick to respond, very helpful. So really, we couldn't wish for better, and please make sure he stays there.
Thank you.
I do have an extension to Duncan's point earlier, is that, I think it's time for the local area team to start to take some brave steps. We've cowered, I think, behind all the national specifications. You haven't taken any brave steps to free us up from some of this dreadful bureaucracy that we try and work within. And if you wanted an example of that, take a look at the local specification for the extended hours DES, which has got some dreadful reporting requirements in them and pre-notifications, etc., etc. I think which go far beyond the national specification. So please free us up from some of this, and have a bit of trust in what we can deliver.
Okay.
I'm not sure that was really a question, more of a statement. But it's really good to finish on a very positive point about Andrew, and yes, we do certainly thank him. But I also want to thank Dominic and Andrew for coming this morning and helping us through to this point. And lunch is served shortly. So thanks once again to Dominic.
Thank you.